President Cyril Ramaphosa will later today meet President of the United States of America, Joe Biden, at the White House in Washington, D.C. The two leaders will engage on a range of issues from economic growth and development, climate adaptation, food security, in addition to geopolitics. We're now joined by SABC News correspondent Kate Fisher from Washington, D.C. Thanks very much, Kate, for joining us. Of course, the meeting between the two leaders is going to be a very important one, and it comes at a time when the world is still recovering from COVID-19. What sort of issues do we expect to come out of their conversation around the global economy?
Absolutely, and it's the first time that President Ramaphosa has visited the White House, and it's the first time since 2014 that a South African leader has made a visit there. So this really is a big deal, as you say, coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic. Of course, many people still very much like they are still in it. Health will be on the agenda. But I think that will be one of the global issues. Other pressing global issues, certainly for the Americans, is the ongoing war in Ukraine. The Americans would like South African support in condemning Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Of course, that hasn't happened quite yet. South Africa remaining neutral and not joining in on that UN vote to condemn Russia. So I think there will be some pressure from President Biden on President Ramaphosa to try to see if he can get his public support against Russia and for those American-led sanctions. Listening to the Foreign Minister, Naledi Pandor, ahead of this meeting, I'm not sure that's going to happen. I think there is still, the South Africans so far saying that they would like to see more negotiations between Russia and the US and between Russia and Ukraine, try to solve things through negotiation and through the UN rather than through sanctions taken by another country. So yeah. I think Ukraine, certainly for the US, will be a big deal. I think South Africans, I think President Ramaphosa will be really focusing on trade. That is a big issue. They want to improve those links, talk about the future of the African Growth and Opportunity Act, and also climate change, cybersecurity, global health, also all there on the table. And he'll also be meeting Vice President Kamala Harris for a breakfast meeting in just an hour or so's time here in Washington. And we understand that health and even space will be on the agenda during that meeting.
Yeah. Kate, you touched on climate change. We know that developing countries have been banging on about the fact that developed countries have not come to the party in terms of stumping up something like $100 billion every year to assist them to help, with the whole climate change mitigation and adaptation process. Presumably that's going to be quite a sticking point between the two leaders, especially with the US, having to shed money off to Ukraine every so often.
That's right. I'm sure that will be one of the things that President Ramaphosa presses President Biden on. Those commitments that were made by these rich and more developed countries who have contributed so much to climate change to assist other countries with less spare cash to try to combat climate change there. Of course, South Africa, a big coal producer, so President Ramaphosa will be saying to President Biden, look, we need support if you want us to carry out and try to implement some of these things. We rely a lot on the income we get from coal, and we need some help if you want us to look in other directions. And that's another thing that the foreign minister brought up a couple of days ago here in Washington when she was speaking, that these countries make commitments at multilateral meetings, multi-nation meetings like the COP26, and South Africa would like to see that money and that support coming through tangibly. So yeah, I think that's certainly something that will be on the agenda, and President Biden has made the commitment that he will be the most pro-fighting climate change US president in history. So I expect President Ramaphosa will be asking him to put his money where his mouth is.
Indeed. Kate, thank you very much for your time there. That was Kate Fisher. She's our correspondent in Washington, D.C.